Good afternoon, phenomenal humans. It is Thursday. We are thirsty for knowledge. Today, the topic of discussion is going to be about doing inner work. I personally have been doing the internal work now for about 4 or 5 months. I know that I have to process through my own internal blockages in order to be able to go out here and show others how to do the same thing. In order for me to be able to promote a product, I have to work with the product myself. With that being said, I have been doing inner child work. It has a lot to do with trauma. When you start to do this work, it is very difficult. We have the perception that self-growth is going to be simple, enjoyable, and rewarding. And it can be. But there's another aspect of this journey that is rarely mentioned. And that is when everything falls apart. One of the major parts of self-growth is learning how to look inside yourself and get clear about certain things. Most often, this involves recognizing and dissolving inner blockages. These are usually deep-seated beliefs that we formed in childhood, or at least the early part of our lives. It sounds good, right? I mean, it's very good, actually, because these beliefs are usually what prevent us from living fully productive lives. These are the beliefs that keep us stuck in self-destructive patterns and have a negative effect on all aspects of our lives. So dissolving these is an excellent idea. The problem is that these deep-rooted beliefs are a part of the foundation upon which our current lives are built. When we dissolve inner blockages, there are suddenly gaping holes in our foundation which cannot support what is resting above them. Eventually, something will slip down into the hole, causing pain and turmoil and terror. My thing was that I kind of went through some emotional turmoil. You got to understand that you're going back and dealing with something that was very painful. And obviously, our psyche buries it for a reason. Our subconscious, our brain buries these things, and it will all of a sudden manifest itself, saying, hey, we're going to process this now, and it can show up at any time. That'll be a topic that we'll discuss later. So this is what happened to me in the last few months. Okay, my eyes have been opened in a big way about a blockage that I've been struggling with since early childhood. I finally felt totally clear on why it was there, and I understood exactly what I needed to do to dissolve it. So I set about doing just that, and then everything kind of fell apart. Not necessarily fell apart, but my focus shifted. I had been working on building my businesses, and when I started doing this internal work, and I hit this blockage, which was like major, it kind of did some things. I kind of lost my drive for a minute. I set about doing the thing with dissolving this blockage, and then, like I said, everything fell apart. That was an understatement. Everything I thought I knew about my life had become a lie. And I was shaken. I was shaken to the core. I spent a few days feeling shell-shocked. Then another few days grieving. Then the light dawned. I understood what was happening. And I could see clearly on how everything is interconnected. It was no accident that everything fell apart just when I was finally making progress on my inner blockages. It fell apart because I was making progress on my inner blockages. So when someone says things are happening for you and not to you, that's basically the same thing. As painful as it is, it's a good thing. Because my life circumstance was built on lies. The lies were the early beliefs that I had formed about myself since childhood. Once I began changing those beliefs, my life circumstances began changing also. Change is great, but it can be scary and painful as hell. When you say growth and change is painful, look at a seed, right? Seed's encased in this little, it's a hard shell. When a tree begins to grow, it's got to break through that shell. But you can only imagine, that a plant feels pain, right? So when it's breaking through the shell, it's like us breaking through a brick wall. You see what I'm saying? That's gonna hurt. But in doing so, you're promoting growth. Change is painful, but you are progressing and going on to better things. So don't look at that as a negative thing. But then it's working. Then you have to work on changing your belief system. The lies that I speak of were the early beliefs I had formed about myself since childhood. Once I began changing those beliefs, my life circumstances changed. It is necessary to go through this because in order to build something better, we need to tear down what already exists. In my own experience, I've noticed that there is a direct correlation between the size of the blockages we dissolve and the magnitude of destruction it causes in our lives. If we dissolve a small blockage, something small might fall apart, in relation. When we dissolve a very large blockage, something equally as large will begin to slide into the abyss. Our marriage could fall apart, or we might lose our job, or we might experience a more serious illness or accident. Illnesses and trauma are tied hand in hand. We have, cellular memory. So any of the traumas that our ancestors experienced, it is carried down through our cell structure. Because what happens is when trauma occurs in one of our ancestors, per se, every cell in our body takes a picture of, that trauma, whatever happened, the pain, and, any kind of reactions that occurred because of the trauma. And that's carried down through generations. From my understanding, and the research that I've done, it is up to 14 generations that is carried through. We're talking quantum physics and things like that right now, guys. That's something I will go into at another time. But just understand that a lot of times the trauma is carried through generations. As frightening as this sounds, it's very important. It's a very important part of the process because it makes us sit up and take notice. Most often, the parts of our lives that begin to fall apart weren't that great to begin with. They didn't serve our higher purpose, even though we may have felt comfortable with them. So, how do we deal with the pain and fear when everything falls apart? Our first reaction might be to run away and avoid feeling the pain. Can't do that. Another reaction might be to try and put everything back the way it was before it fell apart, but doing so only delays the process. You're just putting a Band-Aid back on the same wound in order to just rip it off and deal with it again. Remember that the destruction is necessary in order to make room for the rebuilding of something better, the beginning of something better. In order to complete this process, we need to stay with it. Stick with it. Don't give up. Yes, there will likely be pain and discomfort involved. There will be fear and anger and grief, but there will also be an awakening deeper than any we have experienced before, and our eyes will be opened in powerful ways. Here's how to stay with the process through its completion. The first thing is to look closer. When everything falls apart, pay special attention to the exact circumstances that have begun deteriorating. This gives you a huge clue about the biggest lies about yourself and your life. These limiting beliefs you formed. Look for the connection between the blockages you are dissolving and the circumstances that are coming apart at the seams. For example, if you have begun exploring your true talents and abilities and then you suddenly lose your job, a little introspection may help you realize that your job didn't allow you to use those talents and abilities. So it needed to be removed to make way for a more fulfilling career. Sometimes the connections can be a little more vague, and you may have to dig a little deeper. It may take some time to fully understand how everything's related. But if you keep at it, you will come to understand it, and then you can use that knowledge to rebuild something better. Number 2, grieve. Yes, you must allow yourself to grieve. Just because the old circumstance was built on lies doesn't mean you won't feel a sense of loss and sadness because they're unraveling. Allow yourself to go through that. It's healthy. Cry as much as you need to and stay with the sadness for as long as necessary to move completely through it. But don't get stuck in it. Okay? Number 3, follow through with the destruction. As much as you might want to try and fix everything, don't do it yet. Instead, take an active role in continuing the destruction of that which no longer serves you. Hell yes, it's going to hurt. Hell yeah, it's profound. But at the same time, it will be so incredibly freeing and empowering. Maybe for the first time in your life, you will feel in control of your circumstances. You'll be choosing to release self-limiting beliefs. You can free yourself from destructive patterns. This destruction process can take many forms, but it usually involves releasing circumstances that no longer correspond with your newly emerging beliefs. Unproductive relationships, unfulfilling jobs, etc. Can be removed from your life. Be willing to let them go and prepare yourself for the creation of something more meaningful. Number 4, form new beliefs. Once you dissolve your old beliefs, you will need to form new beliefs to take their place. Usually, this means replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones. This is a process all its own. And it's going to take time to fully enforce those new beliefs in your mind and heart. And it's hard. For example, you might believe that you're not worthy of love. Flip that around and impose this new belief. I am worthy of love and I deserve to be loved. Then simply keep reinforcing these new beliefs until they become a strong part of your foundation. Number 5, begin rebuilding. This is the fun part. It can be a bit confusing, however, because you're asking what do we build and how, especially if the destruction process was particularly painful and life-altering. We may feel at a loss about where to begin again. And the answer is this: let your heart lead you. Think about what you really want your life to be, and then begin taking the steps to create it. They might involve getting a new job, moving to a new location, which is what I'm planning on doing here very soon. Build new relationships. My whole freaking tribe has changed. It's been crazy how much, your life changes when you go through this process of, healing yourself. It's going to change, and change is good. The important thing is to be sure that your old beliefs have been replaced by new, empowering ones. Otherwise, you will simply recreate circumstances that don't serve you, and you'll eventually have to go through the destruction process all over again. Listen closely to the urgings of your heart and use them to guide you along the path to a better life. This is not an easy process by any means, but it is oh so fun and exhilarating if we embrace it and allow it to happen without fighting against pain and fear. Through our trials and challenges come new levels of growth, new levels of wisdom, and the inner strength beyond our wildest dreams. We just need to stay with the process and watch for the rainbows after the storm. With that, guys, I want to leave you with that. And you all have a great day. Talk to you later. See you next time.